I'd like to welcome everybody to the Kalbach Shul for another evening of exciting Judaism. My name is David Shweki. I'm talking from behind the camera. I run a website called Exciting Judaism. I'd like to thank the Kalbach Shul for welcoming all of us tonight. I'd like to thank Rabbi Naftali Citron, Julie Bola, the board, Peter Atkin, for welcoming us tonight. Tonight we have a wonderful speaker who's been around for a while. I know a little bit about him, and I had a friend of mine who asked me if I ever seen this wonderful book called Jewish Spiritual Practices, and I said, I never heard of it. He says, it's an amazing book by Yitzhak Buxbaum. I go, yeah, I heard of him. So then he starts showing me, look, this book is spiritual. It talks about spirituality in Judaism, which is very rare today. He says, it's a great book. This guy, Yitzhak Buxbaum, is amazing. I said, I know this guy very well, Yitzhak Buxbaum. Yeah, so by divine providence in my mind, I wanted to call you. I just forgot, and then you contacted me amazingly, and bang, shidduch. So I'm really happy to have you tonight, and it's wonderful to be aware of all the wonderful publications you have. So I just want to introduce you, and maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the books you've written. So the floor is yours. Welcome, Yitzhak Buxbaum.
Thanks for inviting me, David, and thank you all for coming. It's sort of nice to tell you a little bit about some of my books, because they express what I'm about, to be honest. So my first book, I was telling David, this book is Jewish Spiritual Practices. This has all the teachings of the Rebbes, how to achieve God consciousness, Dveikut. That's the goal of Jewish mysticism, Dveikut. So we're always told to achieve high things, but rarely are we told how to do it. So I collected practical teachings about how to achieve these high states of consciousness. And finally I realized there was enough to make into a book. And I was going to make a little book. Then I did research on it, and it became a gigantic book. And I used to, the hardcover was even bigger. I used to say I sell it by the pound. You know. And anyway, so this has all, for every life activity and every religious activity, meaning for eating,
I'm at an event.
for davening, for conversing, for Shabbat, for every life activity and every spiritual activity. This has the teachings of the Rebbes, all simple stuff, not complicated stuff. How to be a mystic, how to be God conscious. There's a 55-page chapter on eating meditation.
Yeah.
So people are always talking about the Buddhist eating meditation. The Jewish eating meditation is better because God is involved. So this book, Shlomo was alive when this book came out, and he said it's mamash a Rebbe sefer. Like a sefer written by a Rebbe. Big compliment. And this book was given a 4-page review in Lubavitch Wellsprings magazine. 4 pages. And he said it's a very, very important book. 2 varies. So it's an extraordinary book, if I say so myself.
Where can we get all your books? Any specific place or?
Well, they're on in Judaica bookstores. Some of them they're online.
Amazon.
And I sell. Yeah, you can get them on Amazon, and I sell them too.
Okay.
Rabbi Zalman gave this as a gift to the Dalai Lama.
Cool.
Wow.
The Dalai Lama made some comments about it.
What did he say?
He said he didn't know Judaism had so much to offer. I tell people that I was offered to be the chief rabbi of Tibet, but I declined because it's prestigious, but it's a very small group community and very low salary. So then some other books. The Life and Teachings of Hillel is the only comprehensive book on Hillel in any language.
Oh, cool.
Now, Rabbi Naftali Citron is giving a talk tonight on Hillel and Shammai. So it's the only comprehensive book about Hillel in English or Hebrew, remarkably. And then this is a small book, but precious. It's the mystic teachings about loving your neighbor. The mystic teachings.
What's it called?
Called An Open Heart, the Mystic Path of Loving People. Nobody's ever written about the subject. It's the only book. The mystic teachings about loving your neighbor. Then this, I've always been excited about, but I want bliss. I want joy, I want bliss, I want ecstasy. So this is a book that I've translated Hasidic stories mostly, and collected them about people who achieved bliss and ecstasy from their religion.
What's it called?
It's called the Jewish Tales of Mystic Joy. And then I've always been annoyed at how few tales there are about women, so I collected them. And I came up, in the research I came up, it's the only book of tales of women of the last 2-3 centuries that's respectful in the highest way of women. This is an extraordinary book. It's such a pleasure to be able to read a book just about women.
What's the name of it?
Jewish Tales of Holy Women. Okay. This 2 books left. There's 10 in all. I didn't bring some. This book is, I wrote 2 books on Tu B'Shvat. I'll mention Tu B'Shvat tonight in my talk. Tu B'Shvat is the only holiday created by the Kabbalists. This book is called A Person is Like a Tree. Tu B'Shvat is the culmination of all the holidays. Shlomo said that you can tell which holidays are the most important. They're the ones the fewest people observe. So this is an extraordinary holiday. I'll say something about it later.
You wrote a second book about
Yeah.
What was that called?
It's called the Tu B'Shvat Seder. And my most recent book, it's not that recent, is The Light and Fire of the Baal Shem Tov. This is the only book, comprehensive book on the Baal Shem Tov in English, written as devotional scripture. This book was written with Ruach HaKodesh, if I tell you the truth. And it's got great blurbs from across the spectrum, from Lubavitch to across the spectrum. So it's an extraordinary book. Extraordinary book. So and the beautiful cover, a friend of mine now, who's Lubavitch female painter, Shoshana Brombacher, did the beautiful cover of the Baal Shem Tov dancing. I tell people, you may know what a Buddhist saint looks like with eyes half closed. This is what a Jewish saint looks like. Tzaddik. So, okay, my talk tonight. It says in the Midrash that Ben Azai, a famous ancient rabbi, was giving a talk, and a canopy of fire was blazing around him. And they told Rabbi Akiva this, and later Akiva asked him, were you teaching about Ma'aseh Merkava, the account of the divine chariot? About God's divine chariot. That's the deepest form of mysticism in ancient times. He said, no, I wasn't. All I was doing was weaving together the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, with the prophets, with the writings, and the words were rejoicing as when they came down from Sinai. I was weaving together the parts of the Torah, stringing pearls to God. Now, what he was really doing is being disingenuous, because what he was doing, by weaving together the different parts of the Torah, he was creating like a vessel for God's descent. Maybe you know, if you're a teacher, or you've been in another experience where everything comes together. If you're a teacher, you can have a situation where everything becomes one. And you can connect everything with everything else. Because the truth is, mystically, everything is connected with everything else. Everything is connected with everything else. So, Ben Azai was creating this mystic vessel for the descent of the Shekhinah. So, I had an experience like this the summer before last. I was teaching in a Jewish seminary for a week in Los Angeles, the Academy for Jewish Religion. And I was teaching 4 hours a day for 5 days. And one day I devoted to giving over my 4 deepest chidushim, my 4 deepest insights in all my years of Torah study. Now previously I had only given these over singly, but on this occasion I was going to give them over together. And I had an amazing experience because they all merged in the most incredible way, with sparks and explosions and fireworks. It was incredible. Everything, all my thoughts revealed themselves as coming from one source. You know, me, but also Hashem is the ultimate source of all this. So it was an extraordinary experience for me. And so I became excited about it because it brought together all my thoughts, all my deepest thoughts that I've had as a Jew. And, you know, Akiba and Ben Azai were close friends. And the most famous exchange between them in the Talmud is they were discussing what's the basic principle in the Torah. And they said, Akiva said, love your neighbors yourself. The most important basic principle. Everything derives from that. But Ben Azai said, that's good, but there's even a greater principle, which is that man is created in the image of God. That's the basis for everything, including the love of your neighbor. So, most of my thoughts come from those two principles. They're the basis. Akiba said the essence of Judaism is loving your neighbor. Unfortunately, most of the time we go to teachers, we don't find that. They always talk about mitzvot, about customs, about holidays. But love, Akiba and Hillel said the essence of Judaism is love. But we don't find people talking about it. Shlomo talked about it. That's why he was my Rebbe. But Shlomo put love at the center. And that's what it's supposed to be. Love is supposed to be the center of Judaism. And Shlomo not only talked about it, he did it. He did it. He loved every person on the face of the earth. And I saw it with my own eyes for 30 years. It makes an impression on you. So, I'll start off with my first Chiddush. This is my most important, deep thought I ever had, Jewishly. The Torah talks about the creation of man, the creation of Adam and Adam. And God is presented as a man who scoops up a handful of clay, forms a little figurine. This is a parable. A parable is something real in the real world. What did the person who created the parable see that what activity is this? Taking clay and making a little figurine.
That's form. It's creating form.
But what activity?
Sculpting.
Sculpting. And in ancient times, what did they sculpt?
Idols.
Idols. So God is presented in the Torah, in creation of humanity, as an idol maker. That's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. God is presented as an idol maker. Crazy, right? Isn't Judaism totally against idols? Yes. So what's the point? First of all, you could think it's an innocent error. You might think that idolatry is an innocent error. But it's not. What's not innocent about it is that idolatry is cruel. Idolatry is not connected to morality. We take it for granted that religion is connected to morality. But in ancient times it wasn't so. People would worship their idol in the temple and go and slit their neighbor's throat. So it was Judaism that made the shidduch between religion and morality. So the Torah is teaching that it's not ritualism that's important. See, the ritual is going to the temple and ritually worship a statue. But what's important is loving people. So we all heard about the image of God, right? Famous comment, famous phrase, the image of God, divine image. It's Tselem Elokim, if you know the Hebrew. Tselem Elokim. But you don't know probably that Tselem, the word Tselem means an idol. The image of God, it's an idol of God. So when they say that we're the image of God, we're the Tselem Elokim, that means that the little statues of the idolaters of clay and metal and wood, they're not the real image of God. They're lifeless. The real image of God is us. You and you and you and me. That's what it means. Mind-blowing, right? We're the image of God. We're the idol of God. And if you want to serve God, you worship your fellow human beings. Quote unquote, being a little provocative. That's how you worship our God. Not by ritualism, by ritualistic worship in a temple, but by loving and serving your fellow human beings. This is right at the beginning of the Torah. Now, I read like some time ago a description of a thing where they took a new idol into a Hindu temple, and they have a ritual for bringing the god into the idol, into the statue. The priest blows into the idol's mouth or nose. What does that remind you of? It's in the Genesis, right?
Yeah.
The guy blows into Adam's nostrils and breathes the breath of life into him. That's what was happening there. Because Adam was created as an idol. And God is the priest, the maker of the idol and the priest, who's blowing life into the idol. That's what it's about. So it just shows where this is coming from. Now, we know that there are cultures in the ancient Middle East that had myths about a God creating humans by making little statues. This is not new. It's not only in the Torah. And it fits them. It doesn't fit us, right? It doesn't fit us to have God portrayed as an idol maker. Correct? It's not Judaism. It comes from them. But the Torah took it from them and changed it around. You see? It doesn't fit us to have our God presented as an idol maker. So I'll explain it a little bit later. So this loving people is not made it by Moses or the rabbis. This is at the beginning of the Torah, and it's the essence of the Torah. And everybody's included, not just Jews. Everybody's included. Humanity is one. Adam, the rabbi said that humanity was created as one, so there wouldn't be one saying, I'm better than the other. But unfortunately, some Jews do say that. And but I read some beautiful things recently. Sarah Schneer, the creator of Beis Yaakov, most beautiful teachings, direct teachings about how loving people includes loving Gentiles, includes loving people of other religions. It includes everybody, Gentiles and strangers. Now, okay, so that's the first Chiddush.